Well, capping off another week of Destiny 2, we've got a bit of news to talk about today, Guardians. We have a hotfix preview for next week. Iron Banner is coming back, and we got some awesome insight into the lore behind the Prophecy Dungeon. What's going on, Guardians? My name is the Blacklink, and today, of course, is Thursday, July 30th, 2020, the final couple of days of the month of July. We're about to move on into August, where we're going to be experiencing stuff like Solstice of Heroes and all that kind of stuff. But of course, today is a Thursday, and that means we've got this week's issue of the Bungie Weekly Blog, This Week at Bungie. And while this hasn't been a super news-filled week, we do have one or two things to talk about. First and foremost, if you missed it earlier this week on Tuesday, we had a Bungie-helmed deep dive into the Prophecy Dungeon. They went live over on their Twitch channel where they got to show some gameplay elements from the Prophecy Dungeon and talk to some of the devs behind its creation. It was really cool. Anytime Bungie does one of these sorts of ride-alongs where they explain the content and how they came up with some of the stuff, you always learn some really interesting bits of lore behind the content we love to play. In this particular one, we got to find out that it was designed by some of the people who were around long enough to be there when Vault of Glass was being developed. We got to see some of the inspiration behind certain sections of the Prophecy Dungeon. One particularly interesting bit of developer lore there, I thought, was the fact that oftentimes when they're making content, especially engine-based content for this game, they'll come up with little quirks or mechanics that don't really fit in anywhere else. And generally, a lot of that is what happened in Prophecy. They took some of those ongoing mechanics that they had made, maybe when working on the Destiny beta and even stuff before that, and put it into Prophecy. And one of the things about that was kind of the rotating rooms, the way the light and the dark worked. It was a really interesting deep dive. And if you missed it, there is an archive up on Bungie's official Twitch channel as well as their YouTube channel. You should go check it out. Give it a watch and get into the minds of the devs who create the content we all love. Prophecy is a fantastic dungeon, something I love to run every single week, and I love it even more now that we know even more about it. But alright, moving on to some of the bits of news for this week. Next week, Iron Banner is returning. That's right, Lord Saladin's going to be back in the tower once again. And while the month may be different, well, not much else really is. It's still going to be Iron Banner control that you all know and love. As for the weapons, you're still going to be getting the revised versions of the Forward Path as well as the Fool's Remedy. So if you didn't have a chance to earn those in the previous Iron Banner, if you didn't complete that seasonal quest from Lord Saladin, you'll have another opportunity to get that done so you can start earning these rewards again next week. Iron Banner will of course be going live next Tuesday, August 4th at reset time, 10 a.m. Pacific, and going until the following week on August 11th. And while I'm certainly somebody who's been having a lot of fun with PvP, even with some of the wonkiness in the games that have been popping up over the past couple of weeks, I've still been enjoying PvP. I don't know if I'll quite be able to convince myself to jump all the way into Iron Banner like I did for the first Iron Banner of this season. You guys remember what I talked about then. The first Iron Banner of the Season of Arrivals I thought was fantastic. I had a lot of fun with it. I thought the Forward Path was a decent enough reward to go shooting for. You know, it's a 600 RPM auto rifle. Those are super hot right now. The Fool's Remedy wound up being a surprisingly decent option as well. And so I went pretty heavy into the grinding there. And while I am somewhat looking forward to getting the pinnacle rewards again, I'm definitely going to do that on all three of my characters. I will say I'm a little bit saddened by the fact that we still just have the Forward Path and the Fool's Remedy as the revised weapons. Of course, these being returning Year 1 and Year 2 Iron Banner weapons that are going to have access to those two new Iron Banner perks, Iron Gaze and Iron Grip. I was hoping that as Iron Banners would kind of go on within the Season of Arrivals, they'd do sort of what they did with the Umbral Engrams and introduce more revised Iron Banner weapons. I'd love to get a revised Claws of the Wolf or something like that. You know, enhance the options to get some of those new perks. Hopefully we'll still see that moving on later in the season. But at the very least, you will still be able to grind Iron Banner out for those pinnacle rewards, as well as for some enhanced armor mods and armor pieces with pretty high stat rolls. I got some of the highest stat rolls I've ever seen the last time Iron Banner came around, so I'm definitely going to be looking forward to that. But alright, moving on beyond Iron Banner, the only other real bit of news to talk about from the TWAB this week is, of course, a hotfix preview for next Tuesday. That's right, next week we're going to be getting Destiny 2 Update 2.9.1, and these are going to be some of the changes that are going to be tied therein. First up, we've got changes for Nightfall the Ordeal. They fixed an issue where the Ordeal version of Lake of Shadows was inaccessible at tiers above Adept for players who did not own Forsaken. They also fixed an issue where the Festering Core Master Nightfall was listed at 1080 power in the Director, but was actually 750 power. You guys remember this was a couple of weeks ago. The Grandmaster Nightfall for that strike was 750, so everybody was running it because it was much easier to complete it at 750 than it is at 1080, and Bungie nipped that in the bud with the quickness, believe you me. Anyways, Guardians should expect a much greater challenge when engaging with this strike. I would argue no one asked for that, Bungie. Next up, we've got some changes to raids. Leviathan rewards of XP, Glimmer, and chances toward exotic engrams or bright engrams are now back on a weekly lockout. Note, weapons and armor are not affected by the weekly lockout and can be earned multiple times in a week. This had to do with the Contender's Shell kind of glitch going on. People were using it to farm up bright engrams and you could use it to farm exotics and stuff like that. Bungie nipped that in the bud by disabling the perk on the Contender's Shell, and they're probably going to be undisabling it next week because they figured out the glitch that was causing that to happen. Very sad about that, but you still will be able to run those old raids for as much gear as you want. There's still uncapped rewards on that. It's just XP, Glimmer, and the chances towards exotic engrams and bright engrams that have been knocked back. Alright, after that we've got some changes to investment. They fixed an issue where some players could not acquire the means to an inquest from the Prismatic Recaster, locking them out of course, the weekly stuff. After that we've got changes to armor. They fixed an issue where the Ruinous Effigy could trigger the heal from the Stronghold Titan exotic armor while blocking with the carry object. Sad, it was cheese. Basically, when you're carrying the relic that the Ruinous Effigy creates, you can do a shield. Of course, it knocks damage down by 50%, and of course, it does an AoE damage effect. But it drains the ammo of the relic, and once you get to 1, it starts to drain your health. You could kind of get past that with the Stronghold. They're fixing that. They also fixed an issue where Umbral stat-focused engrams could provide less than 10 in the selected stat. Good to hear that. They go on to say that we'll have a few more patch notes in the article next week, but this is a short and sweet update to tackle a few minor issues found over the last few weeks. But alright, Guardians, there we go. That's pretty much it for the biggest bits of news covered in this week's issue of the Bungie Weekly blog, This Week at Bungie. Mainly just the patch note preview for Hotfix 2.9.1. At least I think that was the number. Yeah, 2.9.1. I had to go back and check real quick to make sure I got it right. And also, of course, Iron Banner is going to be coming back next week, with nothing really too new to show for it, but still the opportunity to earn those revised weapons as well as the pinnacle rewards, which, in my opinion, is well worth it in and of itself. But alright, Guardians, that's it for the news, and those are my thoughts. Be sure to leave me yours down in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed the video, feel free to drop a like. Make sure you subscribe and hit that notification bell to stay up to date with all the latest stuff we're putting out. Well, that's going to be it for this one, Guardians. I hope you all have yourselves a wonderful weekend. And of course, as always, I am the Black Link. You Guardians, stay frosty. We'll see you in the Iron Banner next week.